Welcome to the Roll for Crit News Roundup. We're back for the new year. Took a bit of a longer break than usual, but we're here to tell you everything that's been happening in the world of tabletop gaming. Now, it's the start of the year, so a lot of it is going to be about quarterly reports, so I hope you're ready to talk about some financial reports and the good, bad, and ugly in the major companies in tabletop gaming. All this and more in this week's News Roundup for February 19th, 2024. Now, like I said, there are a lot of quarterly reports. It's the start of the year, aka 1 year end over in the new one. So they're going to talk about how they did. And we're really going to focus on two major companies that are also involved in tabletop gaming. Our first one is going to be focusing on Hasbro, the one we all know and love for Monopoly, Risk, and as well as the Wizards of the Coast games, which they own technically through, Wizards of the Coast. Now, we learned that apparently they had a loss of $1.06 billion last year. This was actually including the growth in Wizards of the Coast through both Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering. It seems the majority of their losses came from their entertainment section, which lost, I think, was around the billion of that $1.06 billion, but there were losses in their toy sector as well. Like I said, though, their tabletop area did show growth, and in particular, Magic the Gathering for a multitude of reasons, one of the biggest being their Lord of the Rings set. It did very well for them. This has prompted them to announce that starting in 2025, they are guaranteeing at least 2 premiere sets going to be Beyond Universes, aka set outside of the Magic the Gathering property. We already know that in 2025 that Marvel is planned, so that's probably going to be their big tentpole for Beyond Universes. There are some Beyond Universes this year. We know the Fallout Commander decks. In fact, they're starting to spoil cards, and this episode has premiered. And we also know Assassin's Creed should be coming out sometime near the end of this year. Now, unfortunately, they do think this year for Magic the Gathering, it's not going to be as great. They think value-wise, it's going to maybe plateau or maybe even lessen a little bit, partially because they're making some changes with the different booster packs, as well as the consistent product fatigue that many Magic the Gathering players have been talking about. D&D, on the other hand, has actually been a bit of the opposite. It didn't do so well last year because of the OGL issue, as well as the movie not doing as well as they hoped. But that might be more towards the entertainment sector, but like I said earlier, had some of their biggest losses. However, they do feel this year D&D is going to do better, partially because it's the anniversary, as well as they have a bunch of new partnerships with, I think, there was Pop-Tarts and there was another product. Basically, they're trying to get D&D out there as almost just something you collaborate with, not just as a way to get more people to the tabletop and play. We'll have to see how this goes, but regardless, right now, they've already done huge layoffs, which they did say is going to maybe save them up to $750 million by the end of the year. But that's still a pretty big chunk of people who are no longer working and helping your product grow, including the person who sort of started off the Beyond Universes in Magic the Gathering. So we'll have to wait and see whether they're able to make up this $1 billion deficit by the end of this year, or is Hasbro going to have to make some more major changes in the coming years, and whether Wizards of the Coast, or I guess any of their board game properties, are going to have to take even more losses. Now we're going to move on to another large company that is also having issues with everything except for their tabletop gaming area, and that's the Embracer Group. If you follow video game news at all, you probably have heard of all the different cuts and closed projects they had to do, because not only did they decrease 4% over the last year, but they also took in a bunch of loans to buy up a bunch of companies, and they were assuming that wouldn't be a problem because they're going to make a deal with Saudi Arabia, and that fell through as well. So basically, they're trying to cut as much as they can in order to try and deal with their current debt. Though that isn't seem to be affecting their tabletop, mainly Asmodee. Asmodee actually increased by 7%. It does seem that Asmodee's growth is more attributed, though, to trading card games, partially because they help distribute a lot of games, both trading cards as well around the world, but definitely the United States. But there is also the fact the Embracer Group also has the Middle-earth Enterprises, if I remember that right, basically the Lord of the Rings rights to share the property, which means that Magic the Gathering set, which did well for Hasbro about Lord of the Rings, also helped out Embracer Group as well. So I imagine they're going to be also trying to push out Lord of the Rings more as well, and more on trading card games. They're probably excited for the new Star Wars Unlimited, which is Fantasy Flight, which is also Asmodee. There's a lot of people who own this and this and this, which hopefully should do very well for them and help prove Asmodee is something that they should leave intact for the time being. However, never say never. For example, we do know that Asmodee used to distribute Super Meeple, a different company, and now Hatchet is going to be distributing it. So we may possibly see maybe not closing of board game companies and projects, but rather just changing the distribution rights for non-trading card game products. Regardless, both of these stories show the sort of quick expansion without thinking about the future that happened over the past few years and then the negative consequences. And Asmodee seems to be doing a little bit better. Both the board game companies are doing as best they can and doing a good job. They are showing growth, but they can only do so much against the tide of everything else, be it the not so great entertainment company with Hasbro or the huge loans taken out earlier by the Embracer Group. Hopefully, Asmodee will be able to hold off and be able to keep, like as I said, without any major cuts happening to them. And that may be dependent on how well this year does for board games. Like I said, they already have a new trading card game that did well for them before. This is Star Wars, so hopefully it'll do well again. But we'll have to wait and see if the board game market will start seeing some of the cuts the video game area of Embracer Group has already seen. Kelp was a popular game on Kickstarter that has apparently seen a huge wave of counterfeits online. One of the ways you know that they're counterfeit is the game isn't out yet. While they're able to complete the campaign with astounding around $1.5 million, the game isn't slated to be officially released until October. So any listing you see right now of you being able to purchase it isn't from them. They've asked people to report any of these fake listings to, of course, larger companies. They're having issues because it's always hard to deal with customer support with any of these large distributors. And of course, they're talking to these smaller companies that may have bought some of the games and to say, hold off on listing anything until the official release is out. That way you also won't get caught up in the questioning of if they're selling fake copies or not. So while it looks like an awesome game, do hold and wait until October to make sure you actually have a chance to get a real copy of the game. Finally, this is a quick one, but just in case you do a lot of backing of crowdfunding projects, CMON has made an exclusive partnership deal with Gamefound for both the crowdfunding projects and their pledge manager that happens afterwards. So if you want to back any of their big projects, if it's something that you're excited for, an expansion or a new thing, you're going to find it on Gamefound. I don't know how much that will change for any of you personally. I mean, I tend to enjoy Gamefound's experience in terms of backing as well as the pledge manager. But just keep that in mind if you're trying to find whatever CMON's next project is, it's going to be on there for the foreseeable future. Now for game announcements, I have been gone for a little bit, so I'm trying to hit all the major announcements as I can here. First, and probably one of the biggest ones everyone's already been talking about this year, is Wormspan. This is the dragon version of Wingspan. It does have a little bit of differences outside of just swapping out your birds for dragons, so definitely check that out. Next, we have the new Uwe Rosenberg game titled Tangram City. This will be from Capstone Games and will be coming later on this April. Asmodee and LEGO have announced a partnership for a new building game titled Monkey Palace, so if you enjoy Legos, maybe take a look for that one. And Pathfinder has been releasing their new edition of books. The new Monster Manual is going to be released later in March around the 27th. Plaid Hat Games has announced their newest Crossroad game, Wandering Galaxies. This is going alongside Freelancers as well as the Forgotten Waters games, both of them ones I loved. This will be coming to Kickstarter, and I highly recommend you keep an eye out for it. Then we've got some card game news. First, we've got the Disney Snowcana newest set, Into the Inklands. This is slated to be released February 23rd in local stores as well as, I think, the parks as well. This includes a new card type, Locations, something you can put on the board, send your characters there to get bonuses, as well as something else for you to interact and remove your opponent's side of the board. Then, of course, we got the new TCG, Star Wars Unlimited. That is slated for a March 8th release. So if you want to start up a new card game in a galaxy far, far away, definitely look out for that one. And finally, there is a secret lair I want to talk about from Magic the Gathering. I don't usually talk about these as they're more of just if you're only really into Magic, but this one's really cool. The Sheldon Spellbook is in honor of Sheldon Menery, who did technically work on it, but unfortunately passed away last year. He is known as basically the godfather of Commander. So this is definitely a Commander-focused one, includes one of his favorite commanders, as well as a bunch of cards that he really enjoyed playing. One he even worked on creating with Wizards of the Coast. So a really cool secret lair in honor of a very important person in Magic the Gathering's history. And some of the sales will be going to the American Cancer Society, so it's also going to be charitable as well. If you're interested in this, you can start the pre-sale, I believe, so pre-orders around February 23rd. Now, that's all the news we have for this week. Let me know your thoughts on anything, of course, in the comments down below. Sorry for taking so long, but I am back. I'm excited to make more videos for you in the upcoming year. But for now, I'm Will, and I'll see you next time on the News Roundup.